Before the break, I didn't get a chance to share my own customer experience, and because I have control of the mic at the moment, I am going to share it, just for fun. I used to live in Seattle, and if you live in Seattle, then you're very familiar with Alaska Airlines. And they had a problem for a while, which is simply that they didn't have enough customer service agents. And so people like me would get very familiar with being on hold and hearing a very particular voice, a man's voice, that used to always say, "Thank you for calling Alaska Airlines." And after a while, it just, it just was always in your mind. Unbeknownst to me, they addressed this problem, which was delightful, and then they added another benefit, which was a surprise. And so basically they added more agents, but then they also created a system that recognized who you were based on your phone number and served this information up to the agent before they actually picked up the call. And so after they made this change, I called in to check something. I was prepared to be on hold forever. It just so happened that the man who does the recordings was the agent that took my call. And so I was sitting there on the phone, and all of a sudden I heard, "Thank you for calling Alaska Airlines. How can I help you, Jason?" But I thought that was a very nice touch on their part. Anyway, thank you for indulging me with my story. So the popularity of mobile money systems for sending digital payments is hard to disagree with. What's interesting, however, is the fact that most of these digital accounts, as we were saying a little bit earlier, remain empty. While mobile money is wildly popular for payments, it's just acting as a pass-through. Many, including our next speaker, see this as a huge missed opportunity and a genuine constraint on the growth of payment ecosystems. Our next speaker, Ignacio Mas, believes it is time to put money management and not just instant payments at the center of digital financial propositions. Ignacio is executive director and co-founder at the Digital Frontiers Institute, a new organization which is creating a professional development network and training course around digital money and payments. He is a senior fellow at the Fletcher School's Council on Emerging Market Enterprises at Tufts University, a research fellow at Singapore Management University's Sim Kee Boon Institute for Financial Economics, and an associate with Bankable Frontiers. But wait, there's more. I've got more here. Ignacio worked as a senior advisor in the Financial Services for the Poor program at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and at the technology program at CGAP. He has also been adjunct professor at the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. Wow. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Well, it's a privilege to be here, giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on where I see the industry, what the challenges are. Thank you, MasterCard Foundation, for giving me an opportunity to be here. And I don't subscribe to the God of science, so all I'm going to tell you is some thoughts that are in my mind, based on lots of conversations, based on a lot of work. So please don't ask me to prove anything that I say. Just take it or leave it. It's up to you. A lot of what I'm going to tell today is work that I initiated with Microsafe and field research we did in Bangladesh and India. We followed a lot of that. We also worked on in Kenya with Equity Foundation, with Equity Bank, where I had the privilege to work on the development of the proposition for the banking proposition for the Equitel service that you might have heard about. And more recently, I picked it up with CGAP, with Antonique and Gerard formalizing a lot of the thinking, and it's been extremely stimulating. And of course, other thought partners, Monique Cohen, Kim Wilson, many other people. So this is just my summary of what I know today. Take it just like that. I've been associated with mobile money for a long time, but I can't say I'm hugely excited of where the industry is at. There's a lot of challenges, some operational. We heard about some of them in the previous panel, but I think there's one core problem that we keep ignoring, is this issue of the accounts being empty. I am going to exaggerate a lot in this presentation, start getting used to it, but all accounts are empty. Okay, forget about the top 10%. Yeah, okay, there's top 10% who are salaried anyway, who are not VUCAs, who know how to use the stuff. But for most people, the accounts are empty. Now, what's odd is that this is not a rejection of digital money. This is a rejection of digitalizing one of the functions of money. Because it turns out that if you build a good system, and that's a big if, people will use it to send money home, to pay bills, and stuff like that. So the means of payment function turns out that you can get people interested in doing that digitally, but not the store of value. Can you have a product that does half the function of money? And what I want to argue is no. Because think of any other type of money that is really good at payments, but not good at all for storage of value. Can you think of something like that? If gold wasn't good as a good store of value, would it be a good means of payment? Well, I can think of one example that is like that, and that's the Zimbabwean dollar at the height of hyperinflation. Could you use it to make payments? Yeah, absolutely. You could go to a store with your wheelbarrow and pay with Zimbabwean dollars. It was legal tender, and people had no problem taking it. But what's the first thing the store owner would do as soon as he received your wheelbarrow? He would convert it back into US dollars. What's the problem with that? The problem with that is when that store owner has to buy something, he's not going to go back to Zimbabwean dollars, he's just going to transact in dollars. To me, that's what's happening in digital money. Digital money is cash in, cash out. If we were customer-centric about it, I would even question why we call it digital money. Because the customer experience is, I've been told, you want to send money home, you go to this store, you hand in some cash, and your mother goes to that store, she hands out some cash. Where's the mobile in all of this? Yeah, of course, there's technology in between, but any business, there's technology behind the scenes. This is a cash-to-cash service, so the irony of digital money is that it's made cash more efficient. So far from being cash light and all that, it's made cash in Kenya really efficient. Because now cash doesn't need to move from a little local circle, and that's it. So to me, that's a statement of reality. The question is, why is that a problem? You can kind of imagine you want to live in a country where Zimbabwean dollars are your currency, but why? What's the problem? And I would highlight two problems with that. First, from the customer point of view. You go, yeah, thank you very much for taking my cash and moving it 200 kilometers to my mother. Thank you very much for paying that bill. But frankly, was that my biggest issue? Was that really the biggest problem I had? No, the biggest problem I had was getting the money in the first place, accumulating it in the first place. And where are the mobile money operators for that? Nowhere to be seen. Because it's just like, what they're really going on is just, call me when you've got the money and then I'll help you with it. Well, I thought you were a financial service provider. I thought you were a financial institution. Where were you in the job of helping me get there? So that's the first problem that I see. And don't get me wrong, if I was a provider, I would be hugely tempted to do the over-the-counter thing and forget about wallets and stuff like that as a provider. But as a sector, we cannot afford to do that because we need to solve people. That issue that I have sending money home helped me from the day one of that issue, which is the first moment I'm thinking, I need to send money to my mother. Help me every time I'm setting aside a little bit of money aside to fund that transaction. Help me if don't get to that amount by the day I need to send my money to my mother, give me a little bit of credit. And yes, please help me move it. We're just coming in at the last step. So that's the first problem that I see. The second problem that I see is from the provider side. How do you want the business case to work on this unless you have a national monopoly and everybody has to go through you? But how do you want it to? How can you expect this to work when you're not using this machinery to get low-cost funding through float? You're not getting any float benefit. You're not getting much customer information because they just transact once a month with you. Thank you for paying that bill and thank you for sending money home. Really, is that the pace at which we need to accumulate insights from our customers in order to drive the kind of customer experiences we've been talking about? You need to get them on a much more high-frequency transaction basis. But no, we're not collecting that information, which is why we need to run around looking for alternative data sources and databases that other people have because we don't have our own data in the sector. And the third problem, and you might not be moved by these things if you don't think that your issue is banking and your issue is payments, but you should be. Because if I don't have money in my pocket, why would I want to transact electronically? If I treated you all for dinner tonight, that's an if, hypothetical, I'll pull my credit card. Why? Is it because I have some superior understanding of credit cards work? I still find them a minor miracle every time they work. No, it's simply that my money is electronic, so why wouldn't I want to pay electronically? But my money is in cash. Why do you want me to go to that store to do a cash in, so then I go to that store and pay like half a kilo of rice electronically? It makes no sense. So if you don't electronify my money, you will only be able to electronify a tiny proportion of my payments. That's my central premise. Because we need to get out of this mindset that payments is now. My biggest issue is the payments that I need to make tomorrow, next month, because my problem is that today's payments are obliterating tomorrow's payments. That's the problem that I have. What are we doing to help them? So yes, it's all about payments. I actually think if you want to get to the storage of value function, the first thing you need to do is not ever use the word savings for the VUCA segment. Why? Because you're going blah, 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 and all they're hearing is, all that's going through their head is, well, savings is what I do when I have excess money. Except that whenever does that happen? When do I have excess money? That's never my issue. My issue is not to have excess money. My issue is there's too many things I want to buy, too many payments. So it's purely a payments problem. And that's how you have to present it to the customer. Help me make sure that I can meet today's and tomorrow's payments. So why are accounts empty? By the way, I don't subscribe to the conventional wisdom, which is, I think, the prevailing view. Oh, that'll come naturally. Let's just make sure that we throw enough digital money into their accounts. Let's make sure that they can pay enough things with it, and the stuff in between will sort themselves out. I don't think so. The proposition of how I want to receive my money, the proposition of how I want to spend it, is entirely different to the proposition of how I want to hold it. One thing has nothing to do with the other. In the same way as the store was very happy taking my Zimbabwean dollars, but was not going to keep it that way. So what is the core problem? You may have heard of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's like an old, very prescient, it's a sci-fi comedy. And this hero, through some process that I forget what it was exactly, but he gets to ask God a question. God turns out to be a computer, it's called deep thought, but let's leave that aside. He gets to ask God a question, so he's saying, what question am I going to ask God? And he decides, well, I'm going to go for the big one. What is the meaning of life? Anybody knows what the answer to the meaning of life is? I'm prepared to be shocked here. 42. The answer? God says 42. Now, what's the moral of this story? Is it that God lies? No. The meaning of life really is 42. Is God a prankster? It was like, oh, that was funny. No, what I really meant. No. The meaning of life is 42. The problem that we have is that we cannot interpret the answer that we were given. How is 42 the meaning of life? The question is no longer what is the meaning of life, but how is it that is 42? So now let's go to Punza. Remember VUCA? And she goes, oh, all-powerful mobile phone, what is my financial situation? Am I going to be able to make that payment? And we know what the answer is. 42. We call that check balance. How is that connecting with anything that is going through my head? That's not my issue. Please don't give me my total net wealth. That's a pretty depressing number, 42, pretty much in any currency. What I want to know is, how am I doing for that school fees that I need to make? And what if my daughter gets sick tomorrow? How am I going to deal with that? And all you can say is 42. Is there any puzzle as to why those accounts are empty? The question is not why they're empty. The question is why we thought they were going to be full in the first place. So it needs to correlate with what they're thinking. It needs to be intuitive. Just to explain how this ought to work, let's just look at what they do today. Because they like that a lot better than what we're offering from a storage of value point of view. So if I have a little bit of money, what am I going to do? I'm going to stick it in different types of jars. Some have a top, but some are open or under the mattress. There's other boxes. Some are metal. Some are wooden. Some have a key. Some don't have a key. Some that have a key, I keep the key. Sometimes I give the key to someone else, putting more distance between me and the key, me and my money. As I go through this, and I've only begun, think of how charged with feeling and emotion this is. And compare that with 42. There's these boxes that you actually have to break to get your money in there. There's these boxes that actually move around and have a negative interest because they eat. There's these boxes, which are my richer relatives and the money guard that I give my money to. And then there's collections of people, all the informal savings groups that exist everywhere. What I really want to see is, we keep saying that informal financial options are very bad. And it's probably true, none of these options is very good. But the collection is pretty darn good. Why is it good? Because I know exactly how to use these. Try to replicate the cow as a savings product, good as it is a savings product, and just start thinking the terms and conditions in the user manual that we need to go with it. Oh, disclaimers about risk, warning your cow can die at any point in time. But this is not a problem for them because this is so intuitive. And it's intuitive in two ways. First, each of these things is suggestive of purpose. We can do it with the clickers, we can do a little poll. I can give you a little description of a type of money. Is it inheritance? Is it money that I found, just down the street? Or is it my hard-earned salary? And I think we would all agree pretty much where it should go. So it's intuitively suggestive of purpose. No one needs to tell me what this is for. In fact, the one thing that people don't do with these jars is, school fees, and this is medical. Oh, which was which? No, they know it. The last thing they do is write a little note and sticker and say school fees. No, they know. And yet that's what we need to tell them all the time. This is a school fees account. So it's suggestive of purpose, but let's keep in mind, in the VUCA world, my favorite letter there is the one that we generally ignore, is the A for ambiguity. Because when you face uncertainty, how can you budget? What's the first thing you put in the top line of your budget when you have no idea where the next dollar is going to come from? How can you even think of budgeting? If a risk can happen tomorrow, throw everything out of kilter. How can you even begin of budgeting? So it's all dealing with ambiguity. And when you cannot do a budget in any formal sense or informal sense, the last thing you can think of is money having specific purposes. So yes, all financial management is about separating money, but it's not separating it in the way that we're used to, which is this is rent money, and this is this money, and this is that money. So that's, for them, they have an idea what type of money this is, but they feel free to reclassify things as needs emerge. I have this money, which is school fees. And the problem is, you do research, you'll ask them, what's that money? And they'll say school fees. Don't make the mistake of taking them too literally. Because if tomorrow my daughter gets sick, it's going to be up to me to interpret whether school fees is a legitimate use for that money or not. Is there a right or wrong? No. It's a personal matter. Is it legitimate for me to think, what's the point of paying school fees if my daughter's going to be sick and not be able to go to school at all? I'm going to put my money in there. But some people might say no. That because education is just the future of my family. I would rather sell my motorcycle than access that money. That's a legitimate answer too. So it's all fuzzy. And we always talk about goals. People don't have concrete goals beyond the next set of bills. So it's all fuzzy. And we need to be giving them these instruments that are suggestive of the class of money that it represents rather than the specific purpose. I think they attach much more of a moral hierarchy to different types of money that correlate with different purposes. But it's intuitive in an even more powerful way, all these instruments, because not only that I know what kind of money goes where, but it's very intuitive on the terms of use. And the terms of use, basically I would summarize into three things. There's new terminology that I've invented. Prods, logs, and outs. Prods are the things that prod me to save. So with the cow, it's kind of forced. I have to feed it. That's a little bit of savings that goes in there. The savings group is long on prod. The jars are not long on prod. other than psychological prod, because this is for school fees. This is for the future of your family, and it's a mental prod, but there's no other type of prod. Locks are the thing that prevent me from going in there. Some are obvious, the cow, indivisible, my money guard, the little peer pressure thing, you know, like I always asking for money on Fridays, what a coincidence. And some locks are mental. Again, is it legitimate for me to access this money? It was for school fees because my daughter got sick. It's a mental lock. And then there's the outs. The outs is when something catastrophic happens, forget all that, give me my money. Those are the outs. The nice thing about the cow is that it's full of discipline, but it's liquid too. You can sell the cow, right? And to me, that's a main lesson of how people manage their money. When you are rich, and by rich, I don't mean rich. By rich, I mean salaried. When you have predictability, how do we manage this thing that we need both discipline and flexibility? Everybody needs that. Well, we segment our portfolio. This is my flexibility money, and we call it checking account, and this stuff. And this is my discipline money, and I call it retirement account and time deposit. Well, poor people can't operate like that. Every dollar needs to be doing double duty. It needs to be discipline money when I really don't need it, and it has to be flexibility money the moment I really need it. Every dollar. And that's what's hard. We don't know how to do that. Because we think we need to deliver them discipline or give them the flexibility. We need to do both. And that's what these instruments do. They deliver both at the same time. Cow is discipline money, very obviously, until it's not. So, at the end of the day, what is it that people use to manage their money? Yes, there's some prods and logs that have to do with the particular choices of instruments that they have, but fundamentally, it's the stories that tell themselves. The fact that this money is for the future of my children. So it's all about separating money, not on the basis of a budget, but of stories that you tell yourself, because every money has an origin story. This is hard-earned money versus money that I saw lying around on the ground versus inheritance, and where the money comes from will determine which pot it goes into. And that has to be consistent with what you're doing now with that money, the handling of that money now. And that needs to be consistent with what you're thinking this money might be for. And good money management is essentially connecting these things in your head. Yes, offer me those prods, locks, and tools that reinforce this story, but fundamentally it's about the story. And then paid. Okay, done. Transaction done. But don't come in just at that stage, please. So what we see is that all money management is about the arc of time, the before, the during, and the after, which is where mobile money and digital money in general has lost the plot. Because mobile money platforms are all real time, and we're so enamored with real time, which is a pretty powerful thing, that we think all customers need to be operating in real time. No, 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 no. Each individual transaction is real time. The service as a whole, the value proposition is not real time. And the other thing that stories are composed of, one is the timeline. There's no timeline, there's no story there. And the second one is the cast of characters. So who are the cast of characters in money management? The past, the present, and the future walked into a bar. It was tense. That's a summary of all money management stories. Now think how many products you have to deliver on this. So I'm painting a story that's very negative of mobile money. Let me tell you how we can solve this. I'm going to tell you some ideas. Please don't take it literally. I just want to illustrate how this can be done. How we come back to a world of intuition. Well, actually, let me not do that. A world of intuition. I got some money today. And by the way, there's two keywords for me. Intuition and control. Because why did that person in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy ask God the meaning of life? He was trying to get control over his life. And by understanding, he was going to have more control over what happens. Which is why Poonza also has the question of how am I doing in my financial, all these things that I need to pay for in the future. It's all about control. And when you get paid, if I get money through a mobile money platform? What can I do to exercise control? To exercise, okay, I've taken control of my money. I've actually matched that money to a story. What can you do? Cash out is the only option I have. You can do nothing else with that money, cash out. And that's why the money gets cashed out, because it's the active act of taking control of that money. And then you can start putting it in jars and doing whatever you like with it. I've taken control of my money. So the question is, how can we give that sense of control the moment you get the money on your phone? Because that's the right moment to exercise control. The most virtuous moment around money is when you get it, because you're remembering how hard it was to earn it. If you wait, a few hours, a few days to bank that money, it's gone. So what can we do to give that sense of control on the mobile phone? Well, and by the way, forget about doing it by giving them multiple accounts, because if I don't use one, why do I need 5? And forget about asking me which account you want to move money from, which account you want to move money to. I'll stick with this stuff, thank you. So how can we do it intuitively? How can we do it so it feels like I'm exerting control over my life? Well, imagine that I got money today. No, today's school fees are not due today, because if it was, I would just send money. But the school fees are due December 15. I'm going to send money to myself to December 15. It's my December 15 money. What's December 15 money is whatever I made it to be. I'm in control. It's not what you think it is. It's what I think it is. I now feel I contribute a little bit of money to December 15 to school fees. You do check balance, you'll see December 15. And I project meaning into that, like I project meaning into the jar. Okay, but not everything has a timeline. How about this? I'm going to send some money to Friday. Because, the fact is, I like rewarding myself with my friends. And if today's Monday, I'm able to send a little bit of money to Friday, I'm going to feel good for 2 reasons. First, because I'm going to already feel good on Friday, I'm going to have a good time, and I'm not going to embarrass myself because I can't pay the rounds. But secondly, what I'm telling myself when I'm sending money to Friday is, and the rest of my money is not Friday money. It's not drinking money. That's what I'm telling myself. So on Friday, what's the last thing I'm going to do on Friday with my Friday money? The last thing I want to do is to cash out. Why? Because if I cash it out, it joins all my other money. Now all my money is Friday. So they'll want to pay electronically, hopefully, fingers crossed, at the point of sale, so that you pay with Friday money, because monies are different. So that's an example of how the storage of value will help you with digital payments. You have to link it into their story. Another example, okay, so we talked about, I'd send money to Fridays. I'll send the money to December 15. Send money to colors. Here's my red hot money versus my eyes blue versus my banana yellow. What's banana yellow? Whatever you want it to be. Segment your heart out. For young people, don't give me colors, I'm not in kindergarten anymore. Musical bands. Or, cars. Is my Ferrari money versus my Subaru money. Imagine if people talked like that. I got some elephant money and I got some gazelle money. Do you think they will drink out of elephant money? No. And yet, there's no lock. It's just purely mental. You're just inviting them to play a story around that money. So that's what we need to do with digital money. Bring story back. And how can we fail at this? What digital, in general, is really good at is gaming. How can we fail at creating little stories in their heads about how they're managing themselves? How can we fail with gaming? And digital is great at social networking. How can we fail at engaging their social networks in their money management just like they do in the social environment, in the savings group environment? How can we fail? Well, we can't fail. Obviously, there's vision on hold until everybody has smartphones, let me tell you that. But at the time being, sending money to Thursday, I send money to Thursday because that's when my Rosca meets. And I want to make sure I have enough money on Thursdays. I'm a small businessman. I send money to December 1st because that's when I need to repay my credit. And I know that that line of credit is everything in my business. If I don't get that line of credit repaid, I'm out. So you're giving me the means to manage that debt. If I'm a farmer, my problem is the opposite. My problem is I get all this money all in one go. Well, I'm going to send this money to January 1st because that's when the land preparation period is, and then to fertilizer time. And with the rest, I'm going to pay myself a salary because my family and I need to live for 3 months. I'm going to send some money December 1st, January 1st, February 1st. So that's just to give you an idea of how we can solve this. Let's bring back intuition and get people to feel in control. Not only in control of their money, but in control of your product. Because that is what they have always done. How does this solve the business, work on the business case side? Well, in financial inclusion, this was where the willingness to pay was. And so we churned this round and round and round and round. And then along came M-Pesa and say, oh, no, there's another thing that drives willingness to pay. It's called remote payments. Round, 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 round. But these things are not engaging. Because what I really want to submit to you is that this machinery is not complete until you have that. Not because savings is good for you, forget that. Because if I'm convincing you to keep your money electronically between one thing and the next, that is what's going to drive more payments. Because if I save the money for school fees on December 15 by sending money to December 15, of course I'm going to pay it electronically. Why would I want to cash it out and then walk the money over? Of course I'm going to do that. So put me in a natural long position in digital money, which then drives my willingness to pay for electronically. And if I'm doing all that, you're bringing into daily usefulness for me, not just this once a month, send money home, pay a bill. And if I'm using it daily for savings and for payments, is that not the customer insight that we need for driving credit? Because I see how far out in time you're managing your different pots of money. You're sending money to different horizons. I see how regularly you contribute to them. Wouldn't I want to give you that extra money when the ones that you're not able to make it? And of course, the storage of value helps me repay those credits because I can plan when the money needs to appear magically for me to repay that loan, as I was saying for the small businessman. That's a proposition. So savings, is there money in low balance savings? No, there isn't. Because that's the wrong question. You need to see the whole proposition around the customer, and that is the basis of the engagement. I would like to insist on one thing. What we're trying to do in developing countries is diametrically opposed to what happened in rich countries. In the US, in Spain, first we electronified money. First they convinced us that keeping your money in the bank is a good idea. And then they said, oh, since your money is electronic, here's a card, would you like to pay with this? And we said, yeah, I love it. And here's a mobile phone, would you like to play with this app? Love it. So first we electronified money, then we electronified payments. What we're doing in developing countries is the opposite. First, we're electronifying payments. And make no mistake, we're not electronifying money because the money is a state, digital money is a state, the value is in after you've received it before you use it. So just making a payment digital does not electronic money make. So we're electronifying payments but not money. Can you really do that? So just to summarize, or I can summarize or I can turn it to the audience. Let's turn it to the audience. Oh, no, I do want to summarize one thing. No, it's actually a grand finale more than a summary. That was the summary. So what I would want to, the key thought I wanted to get out is your job is not to create products. Your job is to give them the tools that they can give value, meaning to. Let them inject that meaning into things. And to me, that's the essence of empathy and respect, where I'm not passing any judgment as to what it is that you need or how you're going to be using it. And I just found this quote. It's a bit of a no reason other than in some way I think it links to the conversation. Pixar, great storytellers. Oh yeah, the connection was storytelling, right? Everything is about stories. Great storytellers, Pixar. They come up with these 22 rules of storytelling. Let me show you what rule number 1 is. I just find this amazing. Admire characters, read customers, for attempting more than what their successes have been. And that's every cartoon. Every cartoon, you're just wanting the guy to say, oh, he let me down again. But does that stop you from wanting the guy to succeed next time around? No. The more he tries, the more you admire the cartoon. Is that how we think about, is that how bankers typically treat their customers? I don't think so. So give them the tools to try and try again and try again, and eventually they're going to make it. So why don't I just leave it here, and we're just going to have a discussion around all of this. So we have 8.5 minutes, but any comments, questions? Oh, we need mics. Or we can stand very closely.
Thanks, Ignacio. As always, great. For too long, we have been converting people's stories into our mental models in terms of savings and loans. And I've been thinking that one way to summarize what you of course go very, very far in all this insights and depth. But one very simple visual I've been playing around with for the last 5-10 years is nets and ladders. Can we create ladders and nets? Nets in terms of when you fall, you don't break your back. And this could be saving, it could be access to credit, it could be insurance, doesn't matter. These are our names, these are not people's stories. Similarly, when I get an opportunity to rise up, and my visual is people playing in the circus. The jokers are able to do all these maneuvers only because they know when they fall, they will not break their back. Can we offer people those opportunities?
Absolutely. For me, when we go to digital, and this kind of came up in the previous panel, the products, what do we do with products? And the problem we have is that we continue treating the mobile phone purely as a channel. The banking experience is the same as it's always been. But digital transforms the product. It kills the product. It kills the channel. It's it's killed music as a product. It's killing the newspaper as a product, the books and everything. But is that a negative view? No, because in the place of the product has emerged something much more powerful, which is the experience, the customer experience. I get to experience music the way I want it. So music is no longer a bunch of products. It's a set of tools that people are making available to me to stream the thing that I want, to find the music that I want. It's tools. So to me, that's the shift we need to do from products to tools. Why is that a good thing? Why is that a good thing? Because if you want to do everything as packetized products, I need to know everything about you for the product that's right for you, and everything that's you for know about you for the product. Is that segmentation issue that we're talking about? But I think we can create a minimum common denominator of tools that works for all of us. And we're going to use them in very different ways. This sending money forward, whether to a day of the week or to a color, the housewife is assuring the school fees. The husband is repaying the loan from his microcredit. The farmer is paying himself a salary. Think of this, a small business, and this is how I run my small business. I just need to make sure that every Friday I have so much money to pay the salaries of the wages of my people. I need to make sure that every first of the month I have enough money to pay for rent. And I need to replace that machine that's banana yellow because the machine is yellow. The same tools that were helping with school fees is my accounting system as a micro-enterprise. That's what we need to be looking for. We need to be looking for those generalized tools that people can use in entirely different ways and give meaning by themselves. The more we try to fit people into products, the less we'll succeed. And that's a learning of all digital. It's not my idea. Did that sort of address your...
Hi, I'm the guy who believes in owning the customer.
Ah,
I
yes.
have a question. I have a question. That was a brilliant model that you presented, and your findings exactly match our findings when I was working for EasyPaisa in Pakistan. There's one element that we feel is very critical, and that is the social contract. So you can have the technology in place, but the reason why people, at least in Pakistan, our experience was that people did not prefer the mobile wallet. They wanted to go through the over-the-counter channel, was because investing in mobile wallet required them to believe in a system which they'd never used before. So the social contract very much tied them to the middleman, and it's been very hard to actually get them away from that. So what are your views on that?
No one is born knowing everything, right? So the question is, how do I get this person in a frame of mind where A, this person wants to learn, and B, wants to believe that this works? We need to put them in that space. If they're not in that space, no amount of education is going to do the job. So for me, it's all a value proposition issue. Obviously, behind the value proposition, then there's a lot of execution stuff and channel stuff and agents and so on. But have you put them in the position when they want to believe that they can operate this account and use it? No, because what's it for? I have no use for it. But really, I mean, every time I make a little bit of money, I need to run to the store in order to send some money to Friday and some money. No, I mean, I think if that was a good idea that worked in their minds, and that's an if, then they would want the control to do it wherever I am and not having to go to the store. So yeah, I mean, as I say, if I was a provider of mobile money today, I would probably do over the counter. But as a sector, we need to make sure that this kind of thinking goes away, because there's much more that we can deliver for people than the occasional walking to the store for the once a month sending of money to somewhere. So to me, that's it. We're lacking the value proposition why we want people to electronify their money. Forget accounts. It's not about accounts. It's about why would you want to keep your money digital between the time that you receive it and the time you paid it. No amount of acceptance is going to do that. I find it a bit strange that people believe it's all about the acceptance. And the proof of that is, if how I wanted to hold my money was based on how rapidly I can use it, people would not store in cows. But to be fair to the sides, I don't know whether there's any logic to that, but
you talked about store value, and if we go back in time, financial institutions made money out of the spread between lending money and taking in money. I have had bank accounts for 45 years. I have never paid a transaction cost. Bank of America wanted to charge an ATM fee, withdrawal fee, and everybody returned their ATM card. Why are we charging poor people transaction fees?
No, I mean, it's a good question, but for me, I would never put that as the top issue. The top issue is, why would we want them to use the service? If there's enough value proposition, if they draw enough benefit from it, yeah, why not charge? I don't think there's any problem with that. But the more you want to charge, the more is the onus on you to come up with a strong value proposition. So I think that's fine. And I think actually what's curious about mobile money in the early days, I've not done this analysis in recent years, but of all the mobile money systems that were around maybe 3 years ago, by far the most expensive was M-Pesa. And yet it was the most successful, because it had a real value proposition of the send money home with an agent network that worked and so on. So I would say we need to focus on the customer value proposition and not just on the costs. Anything on this side? In the center?
So I don't know if you have an answer to this question, but in the beginning, you started talking about that we've come in at the end and that we're not in the business of supporting the excluded in making their money and in increasing their incomes. That this product is coming in at the end. And do you have a vision or a thought about coming in at the beginning?
Okay, I'm not sure why you're making that inference, but basically the question is, how do we de-VUCify? Am I the first one to turn into a verb? How do we de-VUCify their lives? I mean, that's really what we're talking about. And I hope I've given you some examples of how that happens, because the farmer has taken this simple tool that works for everyone, and I've guaranteed I have enough money for the next crop, and I've paid myself a salary for surviving for the next 3 months. That's de-VUCifying. The little small business that I can now manage my money by making sure I have enough for Fridays to pay wages, at the end of the month to pay rent, and for that yellow machine. You're de-VUCifying my business. And it's my entry point into more complex solutions. And then, of course, once I'm used to that, please upsell me on your accounting platform that is all much better, and look, with this scanner, turns out you don't even need to enter the data because it all happens automatically. Great. But what we're lacking is the entry-level product that to me is short-term money management. Do we have Do we have time for more questions? Time is up. Want to be respectful. I'm minus 1.18. Can we take one more?
Thanks. Do you think mobile money operators could either extend credit or some other benefit, tangible benefits, to actually kickstart usage, like more usage of mobile money accounts?
Well, I mean, there's many levels at which I could answer that. At a formal level, I would have to say, well, depending on what license they have. If they have a full banking license, by all means. If you're an e-money issuer, the definition is you don't intermediate funds. But you can still work with third parties who give credit to your customers. So in principle, I don't see any problem. Let's just make sure that you're not gambling with your depositors' money because you're not being supervised for that. So that's one thing. But again, yes, you can have remote payments, the thing turning here, and yes, we have credit. You're not helping in between because we don't have no basis on which to give them credit. I just don't understand why airtime top-ups is seen now, the history of airtime top-ups is the answer to alternative credit scoring. Really? On ARPUs of $1.5? Seriously? We need to work not at collecting more information that doesn't exist. We need to work at generating the information about these customers. And that means usage. That means usage. So yes, can you do that? Yes, but is that going to be the answer? No, because you have no way of giving credit. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you.